What looks like a field of ruins today was once the beating heart of ancient Rome.
This is the Roman Forum, the political, religious, and social center of ancient Rome, where emperors rose, laws were written, and the Roman Empire took shape.
After centuries of decline, the Forum was buried, reused, and even grazed by cattle before being rediscovered and preserved in the 1700s and 1800s. This is the Arch of Constantine that sits between the Roman Forum and the Colosseum.
It really gives you a sense of just how close these two landmarks are to each other.
The Roman Forum existed for hundreds of years before the Colosseum was ever built, which means these ruins are some of the oldest in all of Rome.
The Forum covers about 30 acres and lies between Palatine Hill and Capitoline Hill.
We enter the Roman Forum the same way victorious Roman generals once did, beneath the Arch of Titus, built in 81 AD to honor Emperor Titus and Rome's military power.
These carvings on the arch show a Roman triumphal procession.
Most people in ancient Rome couldn't read, so victories were communicated visually, carved right into the stone for everyone to see.
When the arch was restored in the 1800s, repairs were done in plain stone, so you can actually see what's ancient and what was added later.
The smoother stone marks the 1800s restoration. The detailed carvings are original.
Built on Palatine Hill and overlooking the Roman Forum stood the Domus Tiberiana that was built in early 1st century AD.
It was one of Rome's earliest imperial palaces, where emperors lived in the height of the Roman Empire.
Later emperors shifted palace life further along the Palatine to places like Domus Flavia, but the Domus Tiberiana remained part of the imperial complex.
What we're looking at here are the Farnese Gardens, a Renaissance garden complex built on top of the ruins of the Emperor's Palace in the mid-1500s.
This is a perfect example of how archaeologists have been unveiling Rome's past, digging through layers of history, one era at a time. In this view of the Forum, you can see an arch called the Arch of Septimus Severus.
This is another triumphal arch built to honor victory and imperial power.
To the left of the arch are the remains of the Temple of Concord.
The Temple of Concord was dedicated to Concordia, the goddess of harmony and unity.
Rome's leaders often met here when Rome needed agreement the most.
The three tall columns you see standing together are all the remains of the Temple of Castor and Pollux.
This temple was dedicated to the twin gods of protection and victory.
Romans believed the twins fought alongside them in battle, especially when victory seemed uncertain.
And to the right in this view, closer to where people are walking, are the remaining columns of the Temple of Saturn.
It was one of Rome's oldest temples and even held the city's treasury.
Over the centuries, Around 20 temples and shrines once stood in the Roman Forum, far more than the few ruins we see today.
That brick building beside the arch is the Curia Julia, the Senate house where Rome's leaders met to govern the empire.
It is one of the best preserved buildings in the entire Forum because it was later reused as a church.
This sloped passage allowed carts, food, and supplies to be moved through the palace without crossing the main living spaces. This is the service courtyard, the working level beneath the palace.
Those sealed arches and openings once led to the storerooms and corridors. This space provided light, airflow, drainage, and room to move supplies out of sight.
And the wall itself tells the story. Locked doors, patched sections, and different layers showing centuries of change.
These massive, vaulted walls weren't decorative. They were engineered to carry enormous weight while allowing people and supplies to move through the lower levels.
Walking through this corridor, you really feel the scale of what's hidden beneath the palace. These stacked stone fragments were uncovered during excavations and left here for preservation and study.
Long after the emperors were gone, these walls were reused in the early Middle Ages, when Christian frescoes were painted directly onto the ancient Roman structure.
This is the temple of Antonius and Faustina.
Faustina was an empress who was loyal and generous and was a model that Rome's people wanted to celebrate at a time of need.
Her devoted husband, Emperor Antonius Pius, built this temple in her honor. After the death of Faustina,
later, his name was added as well to celebrate their loyalty and devotion.
The lower doorway shows where the original Roman entrance once was.
Over centuries, as ruins collapsed and the ground level rose, a new entrance was created, which is where you see the green door.
That door was added when the building became a church. So behind us right now is the remains of the temple from Caesar.
That's my interpretation. This temple was built in honor of Julius Caesar, who was officially declared a god by the Senate after his death.
This spot marks where Julius Caesar was assassinated.
After years of military victories, he was named dictator for life, and that terrified the Roman Senate.
So in 44 BC, senators assassinated him, believing they were saving the republic system.
But instead, his death led to more chaos.
The republic fell.
And an empire was born.
The first emperor was Augustus, Caesar's adopted heir.
Basilica Aemilia was begun by Julius Caesar and later completed by Augustus.
It was one of the earliest basilicas.
And one of the most important in the Roman Forum because it was where Romans did business, settled legal disputes, and handled money, all in one place.
These long stone steps were walkways and seating, and the brick bases mark where columns once held up the roof.
For centuries, a basilica was a place for law and business. But in the 4th century, Christians adopted the basilica form and turned it into a church.
This road dates back to the Roman Republic.
These basalt stones were laid nearly 2,000 years ago, and people were walking here in Julius Caesar's time.
Just walking through the streets here, what used to be the streets of Rome. You can only imagine being in a chariot or a wagon through these rocks and whatever they call those roads.
Some of these spaces look like prison cells, but archaeologists believe they were more like working rooms connected to nearby structures.
When Augustus ruled Rome, power felt settled.
The empire had one clear leader, the system worked, and Rome believed its future was secure.
Over time, that power shifted.
It moved away from tradition and stability and toward the army, force, and survival.
By the early 300s, Rome was no longer the confident heart of a united empire.
When Maxentius ruled Rome, he wasn't the only emperor. Constantine and others were ruling different parts of the empire at the same time. Maxentius wasn't secure, so to prove his power, he began building this massive basilica.
Before it was finished, Maxentius was challenged by Constantine, one of the other emperors.
Maxentius was defeated.
Constantine emerged as the sole ruler of the empire.
Constantine finished the basilica, making it a clear statement that he was now in control.
The grandeur, scale, and design went on to influence early Christian churches across the empire.
The medieval church of Santa Francisca Romana was built directly into the ruins of the basilica.
Another example of Rome reusing its past, reminding us that in Rome, history is never erased, only transformed.
What's incredible is that archaeologists are still uncovering parts of the Roman Forum today, and much of ancient Rome is still buried beneath our feet.
Leave us a comment as to what part of the Roman Forum you found most interesting. We've really enjoyed this journey, and thanks for sharing the time with us.